another Code Made Easy video tutorial presented by Blackstar Code Academy, where learning to code is easy. For complete, easy to understand and detailed coding video tutorials, visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/CodeMadeEasy. Here you'll find in-depth coding instructions and lessons that are easy to understand and follow. So visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/CodeMadeEasy, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Now this will be a continuation of our Introductory to Bootstrap series of videos. We'll be going a little bit more in depth in this series, and as I stated in the first video, the Introductory to Bootstrap video, if you don't understand what Bootstrap is, it's an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript toolkit. Now you can learn more about Bootstrap at getbootstrap.com, where you can download the Bootstrap toolkit, but we will not be downloading the toolkit. We'll be accessing the toolkit via their CDN remotely with the links that I will be providing a little bit later here in this tutorial. You will also need a code editor. We'll be working with Notepad++. In the previous introductory video, I described how to install and download Notepad++ from notepad++.org, and we'll be working with version 6.0. And in that first video, I went over the installation process and how to use and become familiar with Notepad++, as you can see here. So, like I said, this is a continuation of a previous video where we started off building out our header here, and we built the header with the background color of yellow, and we gave it a height of 200, and we included some text. Now we'll be moving along a little bit further by working with columns and grids in Bootstrap. Now, what do I mean by columns and grids? Now, Bootstrap works in a columns and grid configuration. As you can see here by these examples, you have multiple columns that you can add content to, and they are responsive in nature. So what I have here in this example, get back to that example, I have 3 columns here. There are 3 different sections, and you can add content to these areas, these sections. Now what we'll be doing is we'll be building out these 3 sections here. So the first thing we want to do after you've downloaded and installed the Notepad++ and added the links to the CDN, which I'll provide in the description below this video, and you can, after you've done that and you saved and opened your first page, we want to continue from the previous video where we created this section here. Now what we're going to do in this video is we're going to step-by-step add some text here with some linear styling, some linear CSS styling. Now, if you're not familiar with linear CSS or non-linear CSS, you can find out more, get in-depth tutorials on our Patreon page at patreon.com/CodeMadeEasy. And we'll be using the classes here that you see here in the grid, these Bootstrap classes here, the column classes. And you want more detailed instruction regarding div classes as it relates to Bootstrap, you can go out to our Patreon page at patreon.com/CodeMadeEasy. Now back to this tutorial. So what we have here is just this the header section here, and we have content included in our section here. So I just have that same layout, but I don't have this completely coded yet, but we're going to go through that step by step. So after you've created the top section here and added this text, which I showed you how to do in the previous video, in the introductory video to Bootstrap, we're going to take a little bit more involved here with working with CSS and the division classes. So what we want to do, we want to go to our third column, our third division, 1, 2, 3, and within that division we have our content, which I described and laid out in a previous video, in the introductory video, and I included that the text within our paragraph tag, and I also apply some inline styling, some linear styling to that paragraph tag, this is what you see here. So what we're going to do, we're going to increase the size of this text. First, we're going to change the text, and then we're going to increase the size of the text so it's reflected like it is here. So right now on this page, it just says just some text. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to, first we're going to change the text to my new website. Okay. Website, and then we'll do Control S to save it. And we'll go back and render that page by doing a refresh. And now you see it says my new website. But it's kind of small. So what we want to do is we want to apply some additional linear styling to that paragraph tag. And what we're going to do, we're going to change the font size. So again, this is a CSS property and selector. We'll go ahead and key in font size colon, and we'll make this 22 pixels large, and followed by a semicolon. Control S, go back to our page, and we'll do a refresh, and there you go. It made it a little bit bigger, but we want a little bit larger than that. So all we have to do is just adjust the pixel size on there. We'll make it 42 pixels. Control S, go back to our page, refresh, and now you see it's a lot larger there. So now what we want to do is we want to create these 3 columns here. So on our code page here within Notepad++, we have no additional divs. So what we're going to do is we're going to add these 3 columns here by adding using the grid system here. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to go down here and create an entirely new section. So we have our first section here, which contains our divs from our previous lesson. Okay, so you want to scroll all the way down the page, go down to that final section tag, and just enter a couple of times, and then we want to create a new section. So we'll go with section tag, opening section tag, and close that section tag with a closing section tag. Like that, and we'll go back and we'll open up that section like that. And now we want to include some divs or divisions. Again, I explained what divs and divisions were in the initial introductory to Bootstrap video. So I'll be referring to divisions as divs from here on through this video. So we want to create our first div. So we'll go and do an opening div tag. And then we'll close that div tag with a closing div tag, and we'll go ahead and open up that div with a few spaces, and then we'll go ahead and highlight that. For readability's sake, we'll just go ahead and tab that over because we want to keep our code organized and neat. Now we want to include another div inside this div, so we'll go ahead and put our cursor at the end of the opening div tag there, and we'll go and enter, and then another div and closing div tag, and we'll open up that div as well. So we'll go ahead and do that, a couple of spaces, highlight the opening and closing div tag, tab over 2 or 3 spaces, and now we have our second div. So we have a section, another div, and then a second div. Now we want to include a third div in this section here. So we'll go to the end of the second div tag, the opening tag, hit enter, do an opening div tag and closing div tag, and we'll go ahead and open up that div. I need to do that there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll highlight that div and we'll tab over a couple of more spaces. So now in our second section we have 1, 2, 3 divs, and we want to add a couple of more, at least one more div within this section, but we'll do that here after we've added our div classes to our first and second div. So we want to give this first div a class of container. Again, if you want to learn more about div classes, go out to our Patreon page at patreon.com/codemadeeasy, and we'll give this a div class of container, and then we'll give the next div a div class of row, equals double quotes row. Okay, so now we have our div class container, and our div class row. Now here comes the little trickier part here. Now we're going to start using the grids here. So we'll use some column classes. We'll apply those to these divs here. So what we want to have 4 columns or 3 columns here, and just a little bit of information about how the grids work and columns work within Bootstrap. You won't be able to see this here, but there are 12 columns here. So, and they can be any number divided by 12. So we want 3 columns, so they're each going to be 4 columns in height, 4 columns vertically. So we'll just go ahead and apply a column class. We'll do div class equals then double quotes col hyphen md hyphen 4. So now we have our first column here, which you see here. We have that first column set, and we want to go ahead and add another div within our responsive grid column. So we'll just go ahead and put a cursor at the end of that div, and then we'll add another div inside there, opening div tag, closing div tag, and we'll go ahead and open this one up and tab over, highlight it, tab over a few spaces, and there we go. So now we can add our content within this div here, and that's exactly what we're going to go ahead and add some linear styling to this div here shortly. So just to kind of recap, we have our second section with our div class container, and within our container we have our div class row, and within our row we have our div class that has the grid column class of 4. Okay, so the simplest thing to do when you're creating these classes, or when you're creating the divs and you want a similar layout like this, is to go ahead and highlight and copy each div from this div class that contains the column, and you want to make sure that it is in the row, inside the row class. So what we're going to do before we do that is we're going to add some styling to get this border here on our first column. So we'll just go ahead and do some linear styling, some inline styling to that, and we'll go ahead and add this to our div here. So we'll do div and then style, the word style, and it equals double quotes. We'll do some property of border, and then followed by a colon, and then we wanted 1 pixel. These are the properties: 1 pixel solid black. Okay, and followed by a semicolon, and then we want to add some height to that column, so we want the height here. So we're going to use a height selector and property. So we'll include height followed by a colon, and we want that about 150 pixels high. So we'll do 150 pixels high, like that, and then we'll do Control S. We go back to our front page here, and we'll do a refresh on the page, and there you go. So, and don't worry about this being flush against the top section here. We're going to take care of that a little bit later here in the tutorial. So now, since we have our 1 column, all we have to do is duplicate the other 2. So, and how you do that is you go to the div class with the column class assigned to it, and you highlight everything within that div. Okay, and then you do a Control C, which copies all that code or that string of characters, and then what you want to do is make sure you include that in your row class column here, in your row class div. So we want to go down here to this last div within this div class column, and we'll go ahead and just paste that in just like that. Okay, and then we want to paste another one in, and we'll enter and then paste another column in there, and so now you have the 3 columns, and I'll show you how that works here in a second. So we have our 1, 2, 3 columns, and we've got just 1 column on our build. Now we're continuing from the previous video. So we'll go ahead and Control S on that, and then we'll go back to our front page and we'll do a refresh, and there you go. So now we have our 1, 2, 3 columns. Now we want to create some space between our header section and this row here, row of columns or blocks here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some padding to our div that's assigned the class of row. We don't want to add padding. You can add padding to your div class that's assigned a column or grid column, but we want to assign it to the row. So we're going to again apply some inline CSS styling. So we'll do style, the word style, followed by equal sign, double quotes, and we're going to use the property or selector of padding, and then followed by colon, and we'll make this padding say 50 pixels. Okay, followed by a semicolon. Do a Control S. Now this will create some space between our top column and our top section and our next row. So that's how that works. So now we have some padding in between the row and the section. So that's what we got going on with that. So just to recap, for this video we created another section, which you see here, and then we added some divisions and inside of a container, and then we added some linear styling with some padding here on our div that's assigned the class of row, and then we have our grid columns here, and we have 3 of them there. So that concludes this particular video. Again, this is a follow-up video from the introductory video to Bootstrap. And if you want to learn more about Bootstrap, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and WordPress, you can visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/codemadeeasy. And don't forget to share and like this video and like our channel. And I will see you in the next video where we'll be adding additional content to this page and continue building out this page here. And one thing I do want to kind of show you is how Bootstrap works, and Bootstrap is responsive, so you don't have to kind of be all involved with the media query aspects of CSS. So what I mean by responsive is that it renders responsively on different screen sizes. So this would be like the mobile screen size for a phone, and then you have your tablet size here, and see how everything moves and stays in line and just kind of stays in place and alignment is correct when it renders on multiple devices. Again, you can learn more about media queries and CSS, HTML, JavaScript, PHP, WordPress by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/codemadeeasy. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in the next video.